Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Makeup is Hard podcast. I'm your host, Weenie, and welcome back. Welcome in. If you're new here, I am a retired makeup artist from the TV and film industry, and my gift to the future generation of makeup artists, hairstylists, and anybody industry related is this podcast where we talk about how sometimes the job is hard. What advice would you give your younger self before getting into this industry? What stories do you have that you would have never guessed was going to be a part of your work career? What is something you wish you would have known before getting into this industry? What is something you would tell your younger self? This podcast is not only for makeup artists, for hair people, costume people, special effects people, anyone in service industry, anybody who is in the TV film industry and is kind of on the vanity side of things, the service side of things. This podcast is for you. When I was researching today's episode, I was looking for stories for how this job is very difficult. And I came across a surprising amount of costume department stories. Stories that I would have never even thought of. Like when you work in this industry, you just think of, your corner of that world. And I had no idea how far the rabbit hole went at all. So I compiled stories today from the costume department that absolutely shocked me. So without further ado, let's get started. If you're not already, please subscribe. It's just that little button. It's just that little button. Just press the button. Just press the button. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. And our support, our community of support is growing on Reddit. If you have a story that you wish you would have known back in the day starting in the industry, or if you would like to hit me up on social media, there it is. There it is. We're on all of these platforms, all Makeup is Hard podcasts. So come tell your story. You might be featured. And without further ado, let's get started. Our first story is from IA Stories, the Instagram account from the contract negotiations of 2021. This person says, this was a union TV show. The costume designer had a PA take their cat to the vet after the cat had been showing signs of being ill for days. The cat ultimately had to be put down. The PA told the designer, offered to go pick them up and take them to the vet to be with their cat in its final moments. They declined. So the PA felt that they had to stay so the cat could not be alone in its final moments. Where in the job description does it say that a costume PA has to 1. Deal with someone's pet, 2. Be there with the pet when it has to be put down? That is a traumatic experience. 3. What the fuck is wrong with the designer that they wouldn't want to be with their pet in their final moments? No one ever addressed this. Everyone in the department acted like it never happened. These designers that continuously take advantage of their PAs need to be stopped. Oh, and on the same show, I was forced to work a Saturday for free after a mistake was made due to shitty communication. Still all around, awful experience. That is a crazy story. You hear all of the time when people bring their pets to set. That's common. I mean, usually it's, a really well-behaved dog, and wardrobe is kind of that department where they're pretty self-contained in their trailer, and especially the designer, when they're organizing and so you usually see if there's a pet on set, it's usually in the wardrobe department. The fact that there is a cat of a particular age, I mean, I can understand it. Like, you're not home. So, I mean, it begs the question of, like, should people that work in the TV industry have pets? I mean, we all love our pets so much, but in thinking about getting an animal, like, you're not going to be home. You're not going to be home to take care of the pet. Like, usually cats are very self-sufficient, and a lot of people in the industry have cats, but dogs specifically, like, if you're not around, especially a puppy, if you're not around to walk and exercise and, like, really, get their energy out, you're doing a disservice to that animal. So no, if you work in the industry, you probably shouldn't have a dog. Cats maybe, but I mean, I can understand this costume designer, with their cat being ill, you don't want to leave your cat at home. So obviously, like, you would bring it to set, but knowing that the vet said, we need to put down your animal, and still not going, either says something about the costume designer, or that really says something about the demand of work hours where you have to be on set to make all of these decisions. I know in the makeup department, the department head gets the final say. So, in that arena, you have the department head on top, you have the key artist right below them, which is pretty much also one of the bosses, does not get the final say. In the absence of the department head, they do. But the department head is always around for the most part. So final decisions are on the department head. So the key is kind of like they do the scheduling, they do the paperwork, they do, the management of the people that are going to be there that day. They do a lot of work. And then you have what is called the third, who takes care of pictures and continuity and making sure stuff matches. And I know the costume department is different with their, hierarchy, but a production assistant is the bottom of the totem pole. And you have PAs in the costume department that, either run to stores and like do returns or, iron clothes or steam clothes. To have that person take your cat to the vet is kind of wild. That's kind of wild. So either this set was so bad that the costume designer didn't feel that they could step away, but it shouldn't be on a PA to put down your cat. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? There's no comments on this post other than this takes the cake as the worst thing I've read on here. Oh my god. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I've never experienced that. Chime in if you work in costumes. Chime in the comments. Like, it seems like, especially with all of these stories being within the costume department, like, how bad does it get? Like, but this is wild. I'm not here to pass judgment, so I can't sit here and be like, oh my god, I would never. We don't know the circumstances, but that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. We want to be with our little ones before they cross the rainbow bridge. We do. That story is kind of nuts. That's the first one. That's the first one off the bat too. Oh my goodness. Alrighty, on to the next one. This story is also from iStories. Costume department member here. We often feel like we get the short end of the stick. Our department needs never thoroughly considered for safety and mental health. We've been put in moldy basements with stairs, parentheses, one full rack of clothing can easily weigh a couple 100 pounds, buildings with elevators barely able to fit a single rack, and unheated warehouses in the dead of winter. Not to mention dealing with notorious late casting and access to cast members where we would have to work 14 to 16 hours a day to acquire clothing, multiples perhaps, have intimate personal wardrobe fittings with the actor, alter, tailor, account for stunts and multiples, all before said actor shows up to work the next morning. There has to be a better way. This grueling schedule asks crew members to give up their entire lives outside of work for production. I currently have a 10-month-old I used my time off between jobs to give birth. I received no family leave benefits. Lockdown gave me an opportunity to spend time with my newborn, but left me nervous about returning to work, about job security, and the safety of my family when I would return to work, all while caring for my first child. We are human. We're not machines. That's wild. I know quite a few stories of having to prep for actors. In the makeup department, it's a little bit different because we have a little bit more time. In TV, there's almost no time anywhere because you get approximately a couple of weeks before you're set to shoot. So everything in TV has to be like really, really, really like on a fast turnaround. So like, let's say you need prosthetics. Normally it takes, casting, running, painting, in the case of a transfer, printing, maybe tattoos. From design to inception, it's 2 weeks, which is really fast. In the film industry, you have a little bit of more time, so it's not too bad. And you have prep. But the costume department in TV, like that's fast. That's fast. I mean, moldy basements, I've been there. I have been there. What's the worst location you've ever shot in? Mine was haunted. Mine was a haunted, moldy, 100-year-old, like not cabin, but this historical building. It was really bad. And we didn't have any sort of like anything to put our stuff down. Like we were on the dirt. And when you think of clothing racks, you're talking like heavy metal on wheels, probably the width of this bed. They're heavy. They're not light. And when they're filled with clothing and you're pushing them, it takes two people. There's so much clothing. And we're just talking about regular actors. But you throw into the mix stunt coordinators, stunt people, where you need to have multiple items of the same thing. Let's say there's a shooting scene, like somebody gets shot. You're not going to film that once. You're not, you're going to hook up the little blood packet squib and it goes pop, 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 destroys the shirt. You need another one. You need another one. You need multiples. So if there's any sort of like, on the light end, like if it's just like one, bang, pop, one person, but like if there's multiple people, like if there's multiple people getting shot, like you got to shoot that over and over. So like you need to have multiples or you just can't get blood on the garments. I've done shoots where there's historical garments that are involved that, I had a Civil War movie where the costumes came from a museum and and it was a war scene. We couldn't get blood on them. So we had to get really, really, really creative with that one. But all done in the days before. And like there's scheduling, which you don't have to deal with scheduling in wardrobe or makeup. Like the production does the scheduling. You're just kind of like on the receiving end of that and being like, and you just have to make it work. You have to make it work. And sometimes in really, really bad conditions. And these bags of clothes are heavy. Makeup supplies, clothing everything is heavy. These people are breaking their backs. But let's get into these comments, shall we? Because there's a couple on this one. So true about wardrobe conditions. I once had an LP out me in the corner of a basement that had electrical wiring running across it at eye level. I said, hell no, and got moved. Another job had no place to store costumes near set except the producer's friend's 100-year-old Brooklyn townhouse where the first floor was accessed by almost a vertical staircase. We said, screw this, and we left the clothes in the van. That's probably the best choice. You just work out of the van at that point. That's wild. That's wild. Wire at eye level? That sounds like an indie production. That sounds like an indie production. That's kind of nuts. I once had an LP put me in the corner. So an LP is a line producer. That's that acronym for those of you wondering. Another comment says, I went to a family planning meeting for my union only to be told that there is no family benefits. I feel this so much. My 9-month-old is about to lose insurance, and my husband and I, because I chose to take time off from maternity leave. Also, because it's a pandemic, it's very scary to put yourself out there to work. Hugs from one mama to another. This is another comment that is going to be a whole nother topic on this, but like I said in the previous, this is very common. I don't even have family support. It's an impossibility for me to have children and work. The hours do not account for you to have a proper work-life balance. People that have children are mostly men in the industry. Like you don't see a ton of working moms. They exist. Of course, they exist. I'm not saying that they don't, but there are much more child-free people in the television and film business. This next story is... Let's just get into it, shall we? I'm retired now, but spent my 25 plus year career working in costumes. I did almost every job there was to do in that department, from background prep customer to costume designer. On my first supervisor job, I worked for a designer who is now a respected name in the design world. But boy, let me tell you, from the beginning, she knew that I'd never supervised before. So because of that, one of the things she, quote, all I had to do was print it out and build the continuity book. So I did and filled the book exactly as she laid it out. The first week of shooting, there were 2 costume changes missing in the book. I caught the wrath of the gods for this. Mind you, it was her breakdown. The second week, there was a missing change for the number 1 on the call sheet. Well, the wrath I caught the week before was nothing when this was figured out. On the day, mind need you. So while her head was exploding, I calmly pulled out her handwritten breakdown that she wanted me to work from and showed her that not only was the change for that day not in her breakdown, but neither were the two from the week before. Did I mention this film was all kids and that it was a 7 a.m. call time and that I had been at work since 5 in the morning with my set customer? She continued to blame me for her mistake over and over. And finally, I had said enough. I gathered my whole kit, literally everything I brought to the equipment costume truck, loaded it all into my car, and very calmly told her to go fuck herself and walked out. My reason for telling this story is because at the time I had been working union costumer for just over 10 years. I took the job as a favor for a friend because I never wanted to be a supervisor. But I was smart enough at the time to know that things would never get better on that show. So you cannot work for toxic people and expect them to change. They're toxic because they've gotten away with it. Know your worth and never ever be afraid to walk away. There will always be another show, even if you think it'll never work again because you quit. We make believe. We are not curing cancer. Yep. This goes to what we were talking about last week, and this is what I have personal experience with. I made the mistake of thinking that because there were people that were older than me running the departments, that didn't mean that they knew how to conduct themselves in a professional manner. I was seen as the new kid on the block. I was seen as someone that they could try to, everyone will always try to push buttons and see how much they can get away with. And you can't even give them that inch. Like, that boundary has to be firmly planted from the jump. And that was the mistake that I made. I gave people the benefit of the doubt in the beginning and wanted them to feel included. So they felt like they had a purpose. I mean, a lot of these people are much older and they feel their influence kind of fading from the limelight. And like, I mean, I can put myself in that position and that can't feel very good. It's, feeling like you're no longer in your heyday, you're no longer making the important decisions. And I'm empathetic enough to know that that probably doesn't feel great. However, a lot of these people have many years being manipulative and shitty. And unfortunately, being manipulative and shitty in this industry sometimes gets rewarded. The whole cutthroatness of the industry gets rewarded, unfortunately. I'm that kind of person where I'm like, I'm just gonna do my job and do it flawlessly well. And if people like that, they'll keep hiring me. Oh, I was so wrong. I was so wrong. It is unfortunately who you know and who you like. People form these cliques and they don't really deviate from them. You are not the person that is going to make monumental change. And that is horrific. That's a terrible thing to say. And having the attitude of, I want to be the change that I want to see. Yes, that is a good attitude to have, for sure. But when you are dealing with seniority, they don't change. They don't change. So you have to know where your boundary lies and where you say enough is enough and walk away with your head held high. That's the most important part. Let's get to some of these comments. I love this post. As a customer, I've been in many situations that I should have walked away from, but didn't. There's so much truth to this, and I will have the courage next time to just walk away. It's not worth damaging your mental health over. Walking away is so powerful when many of us feel like it's not possible. Parentheses, money, burning bridges. The more work I do, the more I realize this. It's hard now because back then, this was in 2021, post-pandemic, everyone had the opinion of pre-pandemic television and film industry, where it did ring true. There will always be another project. There will always be another movie. There will always be another phone call. Trust. Like, leave with your head held high with dignity. But that's not always the case now. And that's the scary part. I was stuck in a situation for a long time, a really long time, because there were no other shows. There were no other projects. There was sprinkled, SAG, strike. Everything was surrounding me of like all of the opportunities that weren't there. Like, everyone was out of work. People were hitting me up and being like, are there days? Are like, what are you working on? Can you forward my name? Yada, yada, yada. And it's, I was abundantly aware of the very privileged position that I was in. However, I should not have let it get that far because a toxic person will take and take and take So this next story has a couple of acronyms. PA, I'm pretty sure I've gone over, is production assistant. Production assistants are the bottom of the totem pole as far as like, you know, positions in the within a department. Our next story. As a costume PA working on a film in New York City, my pickups and shuttling my elderly cis male lead designer all over the city. I wasn't allowed to park the van or leave the van. Because the pickups were more important than my need for a break, I couldn't leave. At one point, it got so bad, I literally had to remove and change a soiled tampon while stuck in traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge, after being stuck in the van driving for 13 hours straight. I also had a big gulp cup that I would pee into in the back of the van, while I waited in the front of stores with my hazards on while the designers shopped. They, parentheses, lead designer and the ACD, assistant costume designer, for those who don't know, they laughed at me when I would request they stay in the van while I run inside to relieve myself. They eventually fired me before we wrapped for being, quote, too needy. These designers have gone on to design recent big A-list movies and episodic television. It's hard to watch people with such little respect for their team go on and find such success. As I move up, I think back to that job often, and I swear that I will value the work and respect of my team that's supporting my work. That is very common. That's very common in the TV and film industry in general, because with production assistants, there are things called lockups, and you have to stand there and make sure that nobody passes. And those lockups are pretty much the entirety of like the shoot day. So there's very little bathroom breaks. It's very common knowledge that, you know, people get like UTIs and bladder infections because they're standing all day. I mean, when I was doing my apprenticeship at a hair salon, we were so busy that I would just forget to go to the bathroom. I wasn't drinking enough water to begin with, and I wasn't really, you know, having to relieve myself. But then I eventually got a bladder infection, and that, you know, changed that behavior and made me much more mindful of, you know, the water intake. And like, but you hear all the time of people not being able to relieve themselves. It's so sad. It's really sad. I know of a story where there was a background person working in hair, and they were outside in the elements, and it's very common that we're working outside in the elements, so we have to have, you know, winter boots, winter clothes, or, you know, if you're in the desert, like it's very like you were not shooting inside. So in these instances, you want to be able to filter people in and out, and that decision is always up to the department head. And if you have a crap boss that doesn't care, they won't even make mention of it, and they will leave somebody out there for hours in the freezing cold, in the blustering wind. Like it's happened to me. You have to be very, very, very prepared for the elements and really read your, you know, your call sheet, what you get the night before, to and look at the weather and make sure that you are amply prepared. And this is what leads to people carrying so much equipment, because not only do you have to carry your kit, but you have to carry the what ifs in the weather department. So this story is so sad. This story is so sad. I really want to say that it's an anomaly, but it isn't. These stories are really difficult. They're really hard. And you want to, as you move up into the industry, whatever industry that you're in, whatever subsection that you're in, you want to be able to always remember those really, really hard times in the beginning of your career. We have to make it a point where people are not abusing each other just for the sake of hazing them because they're new. Because a lot of people will grow up and do that to the younger generation and feel justified in doing so. Oh, I had it hard, so everyone else on my team has to have it hard. No, it really doesn't have to be that way. It really, really, really doesn't. And I'm not coming at it from like a kumbaya sense. Like, stop being shitty to your subordinates. You would not be able to execute execute the look that you want without your subordinates. They are the reason why your project looks as good as it does. Point blank period. And the better you treat people, the more they go above and beyond for you. Plain and simple. Like, those statistics are there. When you are a good boss, you pay people well, you give time off, you rotate people in and out, and you make them comfortable, they notice that you are thinking about those things. So they will go above and beyond for the department. Just because you had it shitty in your comeuppance does not give you a reason to shit on the next generation. Point blank period. It's disgusting behavior and it needs to stop. But let's get into these comments. Let's see. That is inhumane. No one should have to put up with that. Yeah, I agree. This is the most horrific story yet. It is truly, truly terrible. Oh my God, I have no words. This is why there needs to be an inter-union HR. Department heads can't keep getting away with this. Much more common than you think. People just get raveled up in their egos, and that's the problem. They get caught up into the glitz and glam of it all. And, you know, when I was a department head, my prep was go time. My breakdowns had to be made, things had to be ordered, everything had to be stocked. Like, it was like, I was a week before production was wild. Wild. And then if you did sufficient pre-production work, you can kind of like lean back a little bit during production. But like that time period and lean on the capabilities of your team to execute the looks that you have designed. But some people take that to the extreme. I've heard of stories of like bosses sleeping in trailers. I've heard of stories of bosses not leaving the trailer at all and going to set, and not going to set, meaning, and letting everyone else do it, and not being that, you know, presence of caring about what you are creating, which is wild. Like, what kind of image are you projecting? What kind of image do you want to be projecting? And like, they get like off on this power, and it's really weird. It's really weird. There's no glory on shitting on your subordinates. There really isn't. Like, that speaks way more to you than it does to us. So, trigger warning on this next story. It involves a passing on set, unfortunately, and that does also happen quite a bit. A costumer was hit by a drunk driver while driving home from work around 3 a.m. She did not make it. I was called in to replace her position on the movie less than 4 hours after her death. Our costume department asked to have the next day off because we were all a wreck. We were told no. Everyone on set was in tears, even the actors. At the end of the next day, the camera department requested an air quality test, and we ended up shutting down over that, but not the loss of a life. Everyone knows Local 600, the camera union, is the strongest union. I always have wondered if the air quality was the last straw, or if that was the only way they could see of getting the show shut down. Throughout the rest of the production, I felt like I was a constant reminder of the girl who wasn't there anymore. The day of her funeral, the producers offered to bus crew members to the funeral, but they wouldn't shut down production. Not everyone could go. I ended up staying behind just so we would have a costume representative who knew what was going on. I regret not going with my department to her funeral. Why did I stay and give these producers a smooth day? Why didn't all the crew members join together and refuse to work to mourn our loss? I thought at the time I was being a hero, allowing others to take the time they needed to pay their respects and be together. But I was actually just the asshole who made it easier for the producers and the ADs to have a smoother day. This taught me that we are all replaceable, but I was actually just the asshole who made it easier for the producers and the ADs to have a smoother day. This taught me that we are all replaceable and need to put ourselves first before abiding by producers' expectations and wallets. Rest in peace. You were a light. That's really sad. What a lot of people don't know is that there is a lot of loss on film sets and TV shows, mostly with driving at night and being so tired and swerving off the road and hitting a tree. It happens all the time. You hear about like the sensational stories like Rust and the Alec Baldwin case, but there's so many more lives lost due to just overexhaustion. I can't even tell tell you how many times I have nodded off while driving. Because, I mean, you don't want to sleep in a bed that's not yours. You don't want to sleep in a hotel, especially when it's the last day of the shoot. You just want to go home and like just sleep in your bed. And, you know, nobody can fault anybody for that. And sometimes productions don't even spring for hotels, you know, like that's a union thing. And in indie productions, sometimes they're like, no, we don't have the money. So, you know, like good luck. But it happens all the time. And you just gotta really, really take care of yourself. It is hard. The job is hard. The dehydration is hard on your body and, you know, your bones. People having, you know, spinal fused surgeries in their 40s and their 50s. Like it's nuts. It's nuts out there. So I don't want to end on a sad note. That was a real sad story. But we're gonna try to end it on a little bit of a higher note. On a perkier note. This is also coming from IA stories. Back again. I always say the industry is a love-hate relationship. This new IA stories are the reason why I hate the industry. But here are a few reasons why I love the industry. 1. My friends on set are absolutely some of my favorite people to be around because I get to be myself. 2. The craft is an addiction. The challenge, the obstacles, the opportunity to prove yourself, the feeling of accomplishment when you do something that you weren't sure you could pull off on national TV. 3, being surrounded by creatives, walking through set and admiring the details of every single little thing. 4, watching the show, good or bad, and knowing that my friends work their ass off to make it happen and knowing the struggle they face every day. 5, catering. Like, why would anyone say yes to any of this without catering? I'm so beyond grateful to catering and crafty. 6, the satisfaction of doing something very difficult and making it to the end. 7, messages too long. But yeah, they're like, I think that that's what gives the avenue for exploitation, because we love this job. We love being creatives. And that's why, like, me personally, to put a, you know, personal spin on it took me so long, months, when I wasn't doing my job in the capacity of, you know, what it is. I thought I was depressed. I thought I was going through, you know, hormone changes. And then I realized that I wasn't depressed. I was grieving. I was grieving the loss of what I knew my career to be. And it's very difficult to describe that to people because there's a job and like tons of people have jobs, but this is our identity. Like, people who work in these industries love what they do so completely and so thoroughly and so amazingly that the high that you get from like looking at your name on a credit, you know, like on the credits and like telling stories of being on that set, whether they were good or bad, like it's amazing. And it's so heartbreaking that the industry is changing not for the better, and that the fact that this podcast, you know, even exists in the first place. But, you know, we're anything if not resourceful. And, you know, I'm changing my career as a makeup artist to something that is still meaningful to me, just in another avenue. And there's so many people that are doing the same thing. And it's just really special to see that resilience. And on that note, that is the end of this episode. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for listening. And again, if you have a story that you would like to contribute, let me put the socials up right here. We are on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, if you want to contribute a story to Reddit, it's r/Makeup is Hard podcast. We are here for solidarity and we are here for you. So with that being said, my name is Weenie. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're wondering what's on my face, click on the link tree in the description and go treat yourself. I will see you on the next one.
Ice in my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed.